Hey everybody, it's Doc for Stop the Madness, taking on the Mormish. And we're also taking on the First Amendment auditors, because we know, hey, what are you going to do? Now, this is Morning Talks with Doc, and my pivotal hit this morning is about an auditor. He's not even an auditor. He's not protecting anybody's rights. He's not protecting your rights or my rights. He's actually an agitator. He's a harasser. He's a foul-mouthed fat ass who thinks he is above everybody he speaks with. He suffers from what's called NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. If you want, I'll post a link to the DSM-5 definition with the code and the signs and symptoms of such. And so we're talking about Glen Cerio out of Washington State. Recently, he was arrested for misuse of a 911 service, failure to follow a lawful order from a law enforcement officer, and there's a couple other. I think he even got hit with trespass because he was told to leave and refused to leave. I want to talk about his behavior and talking about this and things that can be done. Now, I'm all for people going out there, going to meetings and city council meetings and stuff, and having respectful dialogue with the people in charge. And I fully believe that if you have this respectful dialogue with the people in charge, they're more tend to listen to you than if you're coming off them half-cocked sideways with, not a whole lot of the information for what you're talking about. And so in all this, my big thing is the utter disrespect, abusive language. And in his last video, which he recorded, and several of the anti-First Amendment frauditor websites or sites on YouTube have covered this video of this continuous attack and sexual harassment on this officer. Everybody's like, well, if you don't like the job, then you shouldn't work for the public. Well, they don't necessarily work for you or I. They work for the city or the county or the state. And no, they do not need to take abusive language. Now, I understand if you're upset, you get pulled over, you might be late for something. Oh, man, damn it. Okay, I'll give you that. And most police officers will. They understand, you're late, you're trying to get somewhere. However, the speed limit's for a reason. If you're reckless driving, that gives them the cause to pull you over. And so you get a ticket, you either pay it or you go to court and try to fight it, and you go on about your day. Well, Mr. Cerio likes to think he knows what he's talking about. He's very clueless. In his last video, it starts out with him being pulled over. He was, I believe, pulled over because he was using his cell phone while in operation of a motor vehicle, which a lot of states have these now. My phone right now that I'm recording this on and coming to you live in the Facebook universe is on a mount. I started this live recording when I was at a stoplight. So he was observed on his phone while in operation of a motor vehicle, which means the car is moving, it's driving. Okay, cops are lenient. They have area to make the judgment call. If you're at a red light and you pick up your phone real quick and you're stopped and you're, checking directions, or you're responding really quick to a text and you put it back down, most cops will wait to see what you do once you leave that stop. Are you going to stay on it? Are you looking at it? Are you driving? What are you doing? So in this case, he was observed on his cell phone. The officer came up to the passenger side, asked him for his license and registration. He had asked, in, again, his very arrogant, ignorant voice and tone, what he was pulled over for, and the officer told him, I observed you on your cell phone while driving. And Glen's response is, that's not true. That's always his thing. That's not true. That's not true. So, again, the officer, very respectful, very polite, just like they're taught to do and trained to do, asked him again. And Glen in his narcissistic way, turned around, well, I don't have to. No, that's not true. I'm not giving you my ID. You know, and of course he's like, well, I don't want a ticket. Well, right there you just set the tone for the whole stop. The officer goes, okay, he walks away, right? Comes back, he goes, are you Glenn? Because if you got a license plate on your car, they can run the license plate and it'll come back to the owner. So the officer, instead of, once he realized who the person was, Glenn has a very long track record throughout the state of Washington. A lot of people know who he is. A lot of police officers. I don't think a lot of the population of Washington State really knows who he is, but the police officers do. And I bet the chiefs and the sheriffs in the state of Washington have probably passed his name around a couple times. So anyways, the officer comes up. He goes, is your name Glenn? Are you Glenn? And then he goes, oh, here we go with that again. So he already gave it away. He already ID'd himself. The officer says, well, hey, I'm going to send you a citation to the address that was on his registration for his plate. He then comes and says, well, I don't know that address. Well, Glenn works off a P.O. box. If you go to his YouTube page, he has a P.O. box. So that's probably the address he was talking about. Now, in your registration, on your driver's license, you have to have a physical living address because you have to prove where you live. Either with a lease agreement, a utility bill, so on and so forth. Well, Glenn said, well, that's not my address. I don't know that address. Well, that's the address he lives at. Physical address. P.O. box is where everything is sent. And so the officer says to him, I believe it's Officer Sanchez is his name. And I believe they're in Linwood, if I'm correct. I'll have to look, but I believe they're in Linwood Police Department. Or, yeah, I'll have to look. I have it written down. And I'll put where this all took place. Well, the video goes to him going to the police department. Now, mind you, he comes in, again, narcissistic as always, arrogant, ignorant to the max. And he goes, yeah, I need to file a police report against the fat pig Sanchez. So in all of that, he then starts his abusive rant. And you can watch the video. I'll when I edit this and I'll reply to it too on the page, I'll put the link to the video. There's another YouTube personality that I really like, and I'll post his version of the video, so that way, his link to it, so that way he gets some views and stuff, and you guys can check him out. Really good page. I like his page a lot. But anyways, so through this whole thing, the person he gets, the supervisor, is, I believe her name is Officer Ball. I'll post, you'll see all the information in the video. Very respectful again. He says he wants to file a complaint. Well, in his complaint, what gets me, he said that the Officer Sanchez, drew his weapon. Or, quote unquote, partially. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Being from a family of police officers, firefighters, military, and so forth, they don't just partially draw their weapon. When they go to draw their weapon, they're committed to drawing their weapon. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is the main percentage, I would say the majority of police officers, the holster that they use for their weapon is a 3-stage holster. And what I mean by that, there's 3 forms of retention. The first form of retention is the holster itself, okay, where they holster their pistol and slide their pistol in. There's retention in that. It's either on the trigger guard or it's somewhere on the body of the pistol. Being a prior holster maker, it's usually on the trigger guard. Then there's what's called a hood release, or not a hood release, but a snap over or a closure, a secure closure. And that's usually a snap that goes over the back side of the slide of the pistol. That's just another way to hold the pistol in place so it doesn't come out of the holster. And it's to also prevent someone from pulling the pistol from the officer's holster in a struggle. The third form is a hood. the hood goes over that secondary form of retention, and that's the third form of retention. So I'm guessing what took place, because you really don't see the officer draw anything in the video, and the video's been edited by Glen himself. So nowhere in that video do you see the officer ever put his hand on his pistol or undo anything. Now, what he might have done, and again, I can't see from the video, is he may have just put his hood down. And again, that can just come from muscle reflex, because again, we've seen the traffic stops where the person being pulled over, the driver, the passenger, starts shooting at the officer. So it helps in the reaction time of drawing that pistol if that hood is already placed down. So as he's at the department, he starts insulting this female officer. He starts off by calling her a lesbian. He calls her a dyke. Mentions, I think, something along the line. Don't quote me on this, but I'm going to go back. Not wanting to get with her. And just continues the verbal onslaught and the abusive language. You know, there's a difference in language when you're upset, but Glen does it purposely because he hides under the guise of the First Amendment for everything. Which leads this into it. And like I said, I'll let you watch the video. I'll post it after I upload this video to YouTube as well for my viewers. But definitely check out this guy's site. He puts a good spin on this video. But what I'm getting at is I looked up something that that I was looking on language. Now, I looked at the disorderly conduct ordinance in the state of Washington. And what is bothersome is Glen has a rather racist past. There was a news story about the officer that Glen proceeded to call him an MFer, told him, well, I brought you over here from Africa, you belong to me, slave. Now, I'm sorry. That's, in my eyes, no difference than yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. That, to me, is outside the realm of protected speech and freedom of expression, because now you made it personal. You know, slander fits in there. And so, in this, I have reached out to several of the representatives in Washington State that are on this Washington Revised Code Committee. And yes, they have one. And trust me, I had to dig deep to find this list because they don't want you to know who they are. And I have written a letter, and I have guided them to his page, Mr. Cerio's page. And I think something needs to be done. Disorderly conduct in the state of Washington, based on the 6 criteria that are there right now, can lead to an arrest, up to 180 days in jail, and a $1,000 fine. Well, this needs to fit in there. And I believe they need to make a new section in there, or a new requirement that falls for disorderly conduct. Is continuous abusive language of a public servant or a public official. And I'm not saying where you know, again, you tell somebody to F off once or twice, but when you're continuously just letting out an onslaught of slander, sexual harassment at an officer, or any public official for that matter, you know, that's when you draw the line. And the decency, because there's no enforcement to be moral, to have a set of morals. And again, for those of you that might see this, you might be saying, oh, but they're public servants. And they are. You're right. They work for the public. They work for the county, the state, the city, or the federal government. But they don't harassing them at their place of work. that's a completely different ballgame. At that point, you're not protecting anybody's free speech. You're not protecting anybody's rights. You know, we're very fortunate in this country where we have the protections that we do. But I also believe that there are times when restrictions, and there has been in our Constitution, because again, it's a living document. It's meant to be updated as you move through time. Things change. When people talk about the Second Amendment, they're like, oh, that was for muskets. Well, no, nowhere in there does it say only for muskets. It had a bigger meaning, and that's why it was written the way it was written. In the First Amendment, it says, yes, your speech is protected. Yes, you have the freedom of expression. However, you don't have the freedom to go into somebody's place of employment, their job, and harass them, and sexually harass them with your language towards them, and just be utterly a shitbag. A big, greasy bag of shit. That's what you are when you go into that realm. When you watch this video, that is my definition of somebody who is a greasy bag of shit. Is that type of person who just, no disregard for anything. You know, so this is one of my biggest complaints. And there are things that can be done. They can, the state of Washington can modify their statute on disorderly conduct. They can put a subsection in there for abusive language towards a public official. And I mean, just straight out abusive. Well, anyways, I don't know if he really filed his report. He kept saying, oh, the intent of him partially drawing his pistol was to riddle my body with bullets. Well, no, nobody was going to shoot you. You are as much of a threat to a police officer as a blade of grass is. He's very big about talking about lawsuits. I mean, well, they all are. They all think they have a leg to stand on, and they don't. Because what happens is when they use their video, it shows how ignorant and arrogant they are in their narcissism, and they lose. And yeah, the case may get thrown out, but they end up losing. Is what happens. A lot of losing takes place with this group of individuals who, for some reason, think that they're doing something awesome to protect my rights, and you're not. You want to protect my rights? Join the military. You want to protect my rights? Put on that badge and that uniform. But then again, a good portion of these people could never do that. They just couldn't. I mean, I think they spend more time in jail than anything. You know, everything to them is a joke. The way they talk and treat people, and it's people in general. You know, oh, I'm allowed to be here. Well, you are to an extent. You know, that's their favorite. Well, the First Amendment says this is the First Amendment protected activity. Well, it is, but it isn't for you. You're not the press. It says freedom of the press. You're not the press. I have written a letter that I'll be sending out to several states to make it to where, okay, if you're an independent journalist like you say you are, then you need to have a license as such. If you don't, and you're caught in recording someplace, then you go to jail. You don't have a license for it. You get a huge ticket. Your third offense, you go to jail. I don't think you should go to jail for the first offense. But I definitely believe that they need to be licensed as a independent journalist. I mean, it's no different. And they have to have a DBA of some sort with the state, because if you're an independent journalist, you're getting paid for your story. That's just how it is. You get paid for your story. And most journalists, a good chunk of all journalists, when someone asks you, yeah, what story are you writing on? A journalist doesn't have a problem telling them what story they're writing for, or what story they're gathering information for. So these guys, oh, I'm getting content for my story. I'm getting some B-roll footage. B-roll footage for what? For your clicks and views, so you make money off of YouTube. Most of these people, I highly doubt they're claiming the taxes that Ted did. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. that 1099 that YouTube sends them, they're not claiming that. I guarantee you. And you can FOIA them though, you know, because if they're going under this name on YouTube, that should be the same name they're going on their DBA or their LLC, the DBA doing business as. And it should also be the same name that they're filing their taxes under, because I'm going to tell you they're not. But yes, I am writing, because states should be making some money off them. If you're going to claim you're a journalist and you have the right to roll up into my place of business and record, well, the state should make some money off you. So, like I said, I am working on getting information set up. I have actually made contact with a lot of courthouses and county clerks. There was one wannabe frauditor. She thinks she is, but she's not. She's the furthest thing from one. Content is horrible. Same old, tired, ugly remarks and comments. Nothing's ever new with them. They have no leg to stand on, and when they cherry pick the Constitution or a Supreme Court case, all you got to do is go read the case and realize that, wait, no, that's not true. That case doesn't deal with this. But anyways, going back to Glen Cerio, Mr. Cerio, whatever he wants to call him, steamy bag of shit is what I call him. He, like I said, he fits the definition of such. It's just utter abusive language. I mean, I can tell you, if somebody was talking to me like that, and this isn't tough talk, this is straight up, if you're talking to me like that, you're probably going to be picking yourself up off the ground. Very disrespectful. I mean, like I said, these officers are far better than I am. I mean, just professional. Now, at the end of the video, the female officer does have enough with them. He becomes very interruptive. Again, his 5-year-old mentality kicks in. That's the other thing. I don't believe Glen Cerio is operating at a full mental capacity. I don't believe he's acting his age. So I think the persona, the personality of a 5-year-old is very much in here. If you listen to him talk, Mr. I have a 400 level education in English. 99% of the time, it's very hard for him to articulate a sentence. It's very repetitive with him. So I do plan on reaching out to that police department and the county, reaching out to the DA, looking at their city ordinances on abusive language and such. As a person, nobody should ever have to take that kind of abuse language-wise. And as a law enforcement officer, I'm not saying you owe them your respect, but there is a certain level that if I've never had a bad interaction with an officer, you may have. I don't know the circumstances of that, but if I don't have a bad interaction, I'm going to remain respectful, because that respect will come back to me. Again, I'm not saying all cops are good. There are, in every profession, there are a few bad apples that make it hard for the rest of the bunch to shine. But there are some really amazing officers out there that every day they get up, go to work, do the job that they're supposed to do, and maintain professionalism throughout. And it's a hard job. I'll tell you right now, it weighed very heavily on my father, who's a retired deputy. So it's a tough job. You know, you've got to attempt. And as people that have never done that job, it's just like people talking about the military that have never served. I don't care if you got a brother, uncle, your dad, you don't know the actual job unless you're doing it. It's a very demanding job. It's not just driving around in a cop car looking to pull people over. You know, people call them road pirates. Oh, you're out here to make money. Not necessarily. I'll tell you right now, if you break a traffic law, you're going to get pulled over. That's just how it is. If you're smart, you would just look at the traffic laws for the city and state you live in, and try to follow them. Don't try to circumvent them. Don't try to play that game, well, I'm not going to give you my ID, because what happens, that lands you in court. That lands you in jail, because they'll take you to jail till you're identified. Now you got hit with, 2-3 other charges. So, maintain respect, be respectful. They'll be respectful to you. And trust me, they're just trying to do their job. They're not out there to bust your balls. They're not out there to, like everybody thinks, well, not everybody, but there's a portion of society that thinks they're out there just to get them. That's not how it is. you know, if you've broken the law or you didn't go to court on your court date, guess what? There's things that pile on your record that when an officer pulls you over, they can act on. You know, if it's just a bench warrant, some cops don't act on them. They'll tell you, hey, you got a bench warrant. You know, you need to get into court and get this fixed. Others, they will arrest you. I mean, that's their job. Cops have a lot of leniency within their job. So just, you know, if you're respectful, they're respectful. And 9 times out of 10, you don't get a ticket. You get a warning. In the state I live in, Georgia, the cops are really cool around here. If you're not being an ass to them and you're not causing harm to anybody else on the road, 9 times out of 10, they're doing a quick check, come back maybe with a warning citation in their hand, just telling you, say, hey, look, you know, be careful, slow down, whatever it might be. These cops don't want to write tickets. Why? Because it's paperwork. When they literally, when they pull you over, they don't just take off. They literally sit there on that computer for another 10, 20 minutes documenting the citation in the computer system. So they don't want to do paperwork. Trust me. That's the last thing an officer wants to do. They just want to patrol the streets, let you know they're out there if you need them, that kind of thing. So that's all I have for the morning drive with Doc. I'm Doc. Be sure to check out my page here. Stop the Madness. Doc taking on the Mormish. We're kind of taking on a few other things. But we'll post this stuff up here. We got some crazy stuff. I do apologize. I missed my last live stream. Had some RL or real life stuff going on I had to take care of. But this weekend, I do plan on going live. I do want to test out a few things. And I want to show you guys some documents that I have found which are hilarious. We're going to be talking about the land and soil jurisdiction. This is part of this new group. They're soft citizens. I don't care what they call them. What they do is the same thing that the quote-unquote Moorish people try to do as well. They just title themselves differently as a United States national. Not how it works. So really funny stuff. They have this site. They upload all this information that you should be keeping private. And photos of them and everything. And they think by doing this, they're granted some extra rights. I did share a video to the page of this couple who have their United States national ID cards. And they tried to come through customs and nothing scanned, nothing worked, didn't bring up any documents. Again, people, this is nothing more than this small little group making money. I did find some other of these assemblies, state assemblies that fall within this group. And I'm getting ready to destroy the state of Nevada's assembly with their little law that or public notice they try to send to the state government. Not only am I going to be writing to the governor and the state government of Nevada, but I'm actually going to be writing to these people as well, letting them know what U.S. codes they're in violation of and what they're attempting to do and how in everything in their statement they're wrong. They like to say state case law. They like to use the 2nd edition of Black Law's Dictionary because it fits their narrative, but we're going to destroy them, and I'll make sure I upload that letter before I send it so you guys can read it. I think I'm going to get some of those gold seals too. I think it works great, and it's to stop the madness around it, and so I can put a gold seal, and I think I'm going to get, you know, I think I should get pink ink pad so I can put a pink fingerprint on myself because somehow the red makes it more official, and if you sign over a stamp and all their other BS that they try. But be sure to check out the page. I'll upload this to YouTube here in the next probably day or so, and in that description will be a lot of the stuff that I talked about, especially this video about Glen Cerio. And again, appreciate your guys' time. Be sure, like, share, subscribe to my page, push it out there, share it. We're going to destroy these groups. We don't need these types of agitation in this day and age. And if we can get rid of these groups who think they can circumvent the law and work themselves around it, we'll get rid of them. And it might take some time, but we're going to destroy these groups one by one and get rid of them. So again, thanks a lot, guys. This is Doc's Morning Drive with Doc. Remember to stop the madness, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Take care.